Yo, what is up, YouTube? Today I'm going to be talking about the 5 mods that I think everyone, if they're willing to do mods to their truck, their daily driver, whatever they want, these are the 5 mods that I think are actually worth it, and you shouldn't regret it, and you will actually see a difference in. And all these modifications are going to be performance modifications, nothing aesthetic. I like having a truck that looks kind of nice. I know I kind of neglect it sometimes, but as far as spending my money on aesthetics, I don't really put too much money into that. And y'all can see in my previous videos on that. I know I've seen a couple of these videos, especially with the Silverados and all that, the people talk about their mods and what they've done, and in my opinion, the modifications they've done probably total only gave them 15 horsepower, even though they claim it's a night and day difference. Nothing against that, but this is just my opinion of your money well spent. So with some of the money they spent, they definitely could have gone a different route, like I did, and just spent about the same, if not just a little bit more, for a more outcome in power. When I look at modifications, I look at how much money I spend per how much horsepower I gain, or how much performance I gain. So that's what these modifications are about in this video. Now the first mod is going to be like any other basic mod that you're going to do. The very first thing on your vehicle is going to be cold air intake, and this I'm not too picky about. Just anything that can get in just a little bit more air than the stock airbox and all that. Sometimes the stock airbox is fine, but maybe just a different filter and all that. Again, I'm not stressing too much about this because, in my opinion, I don't think it does really too much horsepower. I've seen on the newer year model trucks that it does a lot, like I think 15-20 wheel horsepower on the dyno, which is pretty good, to be honest. As far as my year model, I don't really think it does too much with the stock engine. So what I have here is the K&N cold air intake. I'm not too sure what the model is. I'll look it up. The previous owner had this in, he bought it for the truck before I got a hold of it, which this intake's like $300. So good thing I didn't buy it, because to me buying it for $300 is kind of a joke. But it's good because with the future mods I've done to this truck, this really helps. With a stock engine, you're not going to really see too much difference because it's not intaking any more air. But with this, my engine right now is taking in more air, so it actually needs some sort of better intake. And now, saying what I have done to the engine is number 2 on the mods list is get a bigger camshaft. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, just anything that can either A, get you more power, or B, get you more power. So an engine is just like an air pump if you think about it. You have the valves that are in the heads, that you have the intake valve and exhaust valve. The intake valve obviously lets in the air. The exhaust valve lets out the exhaust. The longer those are open and the wider those are open, the more fuel and the more air you get inside the engine, and the more air you expel out of the engine. So with that, you're obviously going to be making more power. So with camshafts, you have different grinds. So you have the duration, and that's how long it stays open. I have a 220 by 220 duration of mine, so it's pretty mild. And you have the lift. Mine is a 600ths lift. And then you also have the LSA, and that is the lobe separation angle. And so all that put together gets you different power band, gets you different power results, different torque numbers. And so it also depends on what modifications you're doing to your engine as far as keeping it naturally aspirated, boosting it as far as turbo, or boosting it as far as a supercharger. And so with that, if you kind of figure out what you want to do with your engine, that can kind of help you pick your camshaft. And so with the intake and the camshaft, you're going to see quite a bit more power. I dynoed it just with the camshaft and the intake, and it gained 35 wheel horsepower, which may not seem like a lot. I mean, it is a mild cam. Some cams you can see upwards of 65 wheel horsepower, if not more. But I still wanted mine to be streetable. It is my daily driver. I didn't want to lose all my torque. And so camming it with this mild cam, I would say it's pretty impressive. It's definitely a night and day difference. And when I say definitely, it's not just feel it in your pants. It was like a full second off the 0 to 60. And so that I'm not regretting. It did suffer a little bit of gas mileage, but I'm not bad about that too much. One of the other things too, other than more horsepower, is it chops. And here's a little clip on that. So I have a video on that. I got all my stuff from Texas Speed and Performance. I'll put the link to the video again right up here for you. And that'll give you all the information as far as the camshaft, all the additional stuff you had to get, like lifters, springs, push rods, and the valley cover, DOD delete, and VVT delete, and I'll go over all of that in my other video. It's quite a bit old video, it's like a couple years old, but it's good information wise. And I apologize if you hear any airplanes. I'm right next to an airstrip for the Navy, and so they keep on doing touch and goes and stuff. But this is the only secluded place I got, so I guess I got to deal with it. So let me go here to the other side of the truck. Now, this modification really tied it in as far as the intake, the cam, and then the headers. You want to get long tube headers or maybe shorties. It doesn't really matter too much. If you want the most power, get the long tube headers. Now what the headers do is they scavenge the exhaust out of the engine. And so basically it's just how the pipes are, the long pipes, they go into a collector, and whenever the exhaust pulses go through, it sucks out the other exhaust pulse. So it gets most of the exhaust gases out of the cylinder faster, and in that turn you can make more power by adding more fuel and air. So let me go under just so y'all can see what these headers look like. Okay, so here's the back side. This is the driver's side header, and it's wrapped. So with these headers you could either get them ceramic coated to help with the heat because the metal is going to be a little thinner. You're going to get a little bit more heat buildup inside of the engine bay, so you want to either wrap it or get ceramic coat headers. And yeah, so this is the driver's side. My passenger side currently has a rip in the header. I've tried to fix it. I need to get better clamps, but yeah, so I mean it's not unraveling, it just looks dirty right now. But yeah, so let me go up in the engine bay and show y'all what the headers look like from the top side. These are the headers, these pipes with this is actually a titanium wrap on them. I have a video on that as well if you ever get these headers and you want to wrap them and all that. So the headers, you can see they're long tube. They're a lot better than the stock exhaust manifold just because A, you get more flow in the exhaust, and then B, you also get the scavenging effect. And actually mine goes from, I think these are 1 3/4 for each exhaust outlet, and then it collects to a 3-inch collector, and then it goes into a 3-inch Y pipe. And the Y pipe is catless. You could do cats. I chose catless just because number one, it was cheaper, and I also get a little bit more airflow. So it's a catless exhaust going through a MagnaFlow. So yes, my truck technically has no back pressure, but that is a myth as far as back pressure decreases your horsepower or any of that. It's actually, if you have no scavenging effect in your exhaust, that's where you lose your power. You actually want your exhaust to not be too big as well, like let's say put a 5-inch exhaust pipe all the way through, just because your exhaust won't have enough velocity to do the scavenging effect, therefore you will lose power. So after your intake, your cam, and your headers, what you're going to need to do next is you're going to need to tune it. So what I have here is a Diablo Sport. I'm just kidding, don't use those. What I would recommend is going to a reputable tuner in your town. If you don't, I have a tuner. I've already worked with him a few times, so this video is not any, I'm not getting paid to do this video or anything else. I'm just speaking my truth. I have videos on it as well. But Ruben at eTune Performance, he does really great. He works with HP tuners. That's the software he uses to tune the vehicles. He does a thing called remote tuning. He actually lives in Georgia. I live in South Texas. And so what we're able to do is I have a buddy with HP tuners. We go on HP tuners. He looks at the screen. He actually takes over the computer with a software called TeamViewer. And so he's able to go and tune my truck while I do some data logs and all that. So it's actually like he's sitting next to me. And so it's like I'm going to a tuner in town or something, but he's in Georgia. So that gives me a great tune for all the modifications I've done, the exact modifications. So he knows what cam I have, the cam grind, the type of headers, he knows how I drive it. If I have any preferences, I can tell him as far as shifting and all that for the transmission. He can get that situated as far as any tuner should. Me personally, he's worked really well, and so I can recommend that. So I'll put his business link in the description for Facebook, and so y'all could tell him that I sent y'all. But again, I'm not getting paid for that. This is just a personal preference and personal recommendation for him. But yeah, so you obviously want to tune it because when you do this cam swap, you're letting a ton more air in and you're letting a ton more fuel in your engine. And also with mine, I had to change the lifters. I took out the DOD, which is displacement on demand. So what that did is I took out those four, I actually replaced them with LS7 lifters, but I took those out, put in the new ones, and so the engine had no idea what to do, so I was in limp mode. I couldn't even drive it. And so you have to tune it to even run the engine, but also tuning it and making it run right really just wakes it up and lets the engine work like it's supposed to. So with these tuners, these Diablo tuners or any plug-and-play tuner, you're not really going to see any difference in power. The one thing that I did notice, because the previous owner for my truck, when I bought this truck like 4 years ago, he had this installed on the truck, and all it really did that I was able to notice was just make the shifts harder. And so in theory, if you don't know what that's like, it gives you the placebo effect that you're actually going faster and giving you more horsepower by shifting harder and chirping the tires, when before, when it was stock without the tune, it wouldn't chirp the tires, it would just shift smoothly. And I even tested it. I didn't see any difference in any 0 to 60 time. If anything, it got a little slower, as well as my gas mileage. I didn't see any difference in gas mileage because I uninstalled it, installed it to test to see if it was even worth it. This was free, I didn't have to pay for it, that's why I'm throwing it around. If anyone wants to buy it, even though I wouldn't recommend it, just let me know. It's not going to really do anything. Also, what I did notice is when we did the cam swap, my engine had a bunch of carbon buildup. And I don't know if it was because of this tune right here, if it was making it burn super rich and there was so much carbon buildup on my pistons and on the valves. It was, for having 60,000 miles when I did the swap, or maybe less than that, it was really too much. So I have a feeling I had to do something with this tune that was on there. But these tunes cost around $300, if not more, and a custom tune from a reputable shop cost about $300 to $400. So you're not spending any extra, and you're actually doing better for your engine because it is running right, and it is going to be running right for your modifications. So I can't stress that enough. These don't do much. So now going to my 5th modification. Actually, I may put in a bonus 6th modification, so stay tuned till the end of the video for that. But the last modification is going to be a higher stall torque converter. Now, I recently put this in like 2 months ago, and I couldn't be more happy. It's definitely woke up the engine, and what the high stall torque converter does is basically it doesn't really engage until a higher stall speed. And so a stock torque converter for these trucks is usually like 14, 15, 16 RPM, as far as you press on the brake, you hit the gas, and it only goes up to that RPM before you start spinning your tires. With mine, it is around 2,700 RPM. So my power band starts right around 3,000. So it's just that much closer to the power band. So once I let off the brake, I'm in the power band and I go. And that's knocked off like 0.6 of a second on my 0 to 60, and that didn't add any horsepower to the truck, no torque to it, I guess mechanical torque, but it's really just adding a mechanical advantage to the engine and therefore making the truck faster from a stop and actually making it more drivable. I didn't think it would be easier to drive around with a high stall torque converter, but I actually like that more than keeping it stock with a bigger cam. So this is going to be the bonus 6th mod, and I have not done this mod to my personal truck. I've done this to my old Jeeps that I used to have. My dad helped me out with it, is re-gearing the differentials. And now I know a lot of people that have done that and they love it. When I did it to my Jeep, I went from, it was like 373 gears, something kind of small, not really, but 373 gears, and I went all the way up to 456 gears. It was lifted, it did have 33-inch tires, but that really woke it up. And now that's something I've been looking to do to this truck, but it is also very expensive for that. And I would go to like 373 or 410 gears. Right now it has a stock 342 gears in it. I do have the 6-speed, so it kind of helps a little bit. But if I went to like a 373 or a 410, that would really wake up the truck. And what the gears do really is just add mechanical advantage to the engine, and to where the engine doesn't have to work as hard to spin the tires. The downside is at, let's say, 60 or 80 miles an hour, you may lose gas mileage on the highway just because your engine's having to rev out a little more, but I mean, if you do it modestly, you shouldn't see any difference in gas mileage. You might even see an increase in gas mileage just because your engine doesn't have to work as hard to push the truck. And so that's basically it as far as the 5+1 mods to do to your truck. I know some of these are pretty expensive, but if you save your money and you do these mods, and instead of doing these other smaller mods that really don't do anything to the truck, you can save your money and do a cam swap. You can save your money and get headers, and you will see more of an increase in horsepower than just getting a Diablo tune, which is the same price as getting a custom tune from a reputable tuner. Again, I'm not a professional at doing any of this. This is my hobby. I'm still learning a long ways, but I'm just teaching y'all what I have learned so far. So with that being said, take all of this with a grain of salt, because again, you can have different preferences on different things. This is just my preference on which mods you should do first to your vehicle. So with that being said, I'll see y'all next video.